Okay, I'm going to call the Committee of the Whole for April 8th. Please rise for invocation, which is going to be given to us by Pastor Jeff Fox Klein from First Presbyterian Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Lord, we come here humbly, gathered here as your people, as a people to serve, to work, to help, to aid. May we be granted a spirit of humility among us, as we know that we are in service of something greater than us. May wisdom descend on this place and serve us all so that we may bring about justice, love, unity, and grace. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm going to jump around here and move up the proclamation for the Bark for Life. Madam Mayor, if you care to make this presentation.
Okay. Yes, just would like to say that in 2006 was a very memorable year, not only for me, as it was my first term as mayor, but also for the Pottstown Borough, because it was the launch of the Bark for Life. So from 2006 to now, this is now the 9th year. And it seems to be growing in popularity region-wide. It's growing in participation, and it's also growing in the scope of engagement at the event. And to that wise, I'd just like to mention that there will be a blessing of the animals that at the occasion on Saturday, April 11th. If you want to come out and bring your animals, there will be a representative, Rosemary Whitehouse, from the Blessed Mother of Teresa of Calcutta Parish of Limerick, who will be blessing the animals. And at this time, I'm going to be met at the mic by Sue Dudek, also by Sheila Basil, who is the Bark for Life chair this year, as well as Courtney Schaefer, who is the ACS staff partner, as well as Charlie. Please make sure Charlie is seen on the camera and that he comes and shakes hands with Cheryl Miller, who is an extreme advocate for animals. Whereas the Borough of Pottstown celebrates the Bark for Life in coordination with the American Cancer Society and the Relay for Life. This regional event continues to showcase the Borough of Pottstown as a community of focus, compassion, and giving. The Bark for Life expresses perseverance of those whose lives are touched by the effects of cancer and the caregiving bond between dogs and their owners. In 2006, the American Cancer Society Bark for Life was introduced to Pottstown to support the Relay for Life in its life-saving mission. The borough also acknowledges the participation of local families, cancer survivors, and volunteers in delivering the Bark for Life to educate, empower, and to honor the caregiving qualities of our dogs as best friends, companions, therapy, and service support regarding cancer experiences. On April 11th, this Saturday, will be Bark for Life of Pottstown Day. And I'm just encouraging those who not only are in Pottstown, but in the region to come out and to support this great event. Thank you, ladies.
And we'd like to present you with a T-shirt.
Thank you. Yes.
We're very happy to have you with us on Saturday also. And we definitely invite all of you to attend. And it's just a great event. It's a lot of fun, but it also has a definite mission, and that is to raise funds for the American Cancer Society. This year our theme has to do with superheroes. Our dogs are superheroes, and they are barking back at cancer. So you will see a lot of that. We have, in fact,
our dogs, our canines who are cancer survivors will be given little superhero capes to wear, and it's just a fun day, and it looks like the weather is going to be really good also for us, and we are so happy to be at Memorial Park. So, and I don't know, Courtney, if you had something.
I am the American Cancer Society representative for Pottstown, and it's truly an honor to represent this county. So, as you were hearing, this started in 2006. Pottstown was the first to start it. We have our Relay for Life at Pottsgrove High School, and we had a relayer that felt that their dog was a caregiver for them and wanted to honor them, but of course we can't have animals at the high school. So the creative community that you are came up with Bark for Life, and the American Cancer Society took that as a gift. It's now nationwide, and it went international. Locally in Pottstown, it has raised $600,000, over $600,000, and millions across the nation in the fight against cancer, which is something that your community can be extremely proud of. So on behalf of myself and the whole nation, the American Cancer Society sincerely thanks you for your efforts and your creativity in the fight against cancer.
Get out of this winter. Okay, back to the subcommittee reports, infrastructure. Councilor Culp?
Your minutes are at your seating area.
Any questions on? Okay, economic development and business liaison. Anything, Erica, you want to report on?
I did want to report on the Keystone Employment and Economic Plan. We had selected First Interest Associates to take care of the existing conditions and evaluations necessary as part of that project. And we held our first stakeholders meeting on March 24th. And Carol, I don't know if you want to mention anything, but we did have property owner interest, and it went very well. We'll hold by monthly meetings from this point forward. So, thank you.
Other thing too, PAID is starting to develop their economic development plan.
Correct.
That's moving forward, so. And that's something, last time that was in 2008, I think, the last.
Yes, it was adopted in 2008.
Okay, any questions for Erica? Transportation, Councilor Culp?
We did have a meeting. Our next meeting is, oh yes, we did have a meeting, didn't we?
18th.
The 18th, it went quite well. We discussed the rest that has to be done with the airport. They plan on finishing up the runway. I believe they're beginning in this month, aren't they, towards the end of this month?
We have a project meeting on Friday, likely May, a 1-week shutdown.
And also, we have some interest from the 99s, which are the women's flyers, and they would like to do some, make like a, what we consider a compass, or some sort of artwork that has to do with flying on the airport, and that's something we're going to just talk about. And we also talked about PART and the different the different RFPs that came in for from the different companies that were looking to whatever it was, that do our services for our buses and everything.
So they were opened up?
We received one bid
Okay.
from PART Inc. for the PART RFP.
Okay.
We're currently evaluating that as well.
Now come before council?
Next month.
Okay. Okay, Ricketts Community Center, anything, Councilor Kirkland?
No report at this time.
Okay. Pottstown School Board. I did see Mr. Williams.
Good evening. So Thursday afternoon, Congressman Costello will be visiting the high school district, or the school district, and he'll be coming out to address one of our teachers' classes, Mrs. Rieger. And he'll also be visiting our PEAK program, which we're very proud of. Ours is one of 2 programs in the Commonwealth that is capable of providing pre-K programs to parents who desire but may not be able to afford a pre-K program. We're very proud of it. We think we've done an incredible job of bringing our pre-K students into the mix. And so I run around this country talking about it, and it's really proud to be able to get Mr. Costello to come out. Then on Friday, Mrs. Wolf, our First Lady, will be visiting the school district, and she will also be visiting one of our pre-K programs there. She's coming in to talk to us about where the governor might want to go as far as education, and we're looking forward to sitting with her and having that communication. Also on Friday, of course, we have a number of students, along with the Hill School students and residents in the borough, who will be participating in the Pottstown Cares. I don't know if you're going to talk about that, but you know, it's been an incredible journey with the Pottstown Cares cleanup, spring cleanup, and you know, I think we're going to have a really nice one this time, because the weather's going to be better. Last time we did this thing, it was miserable.
I looked on the forecast and it called for rain, so.
Yeah,
Heavy rain.
It's going to be better. So I encourage anyone who's able to meet over at the old ice rink, the old Hill School ice rink, at 8:45 in the morning to come on out, and let's help this community clean itself up. Then the only other thing I want to mention is our Save the Lights campaign is still going, not as strong as we'd like to, but it's slowly progressing. I just want to mention that you can get signs that say you're a donor. Of course, you have to donate in order to be a donor. At $25 a sign, I was calculating if we had every resident or every property owner in Pottstown purchase one of these signs, we'd be doing pretty good. We'd have our lights up by now. But at $25 a shot, you don't have to put the sign in your front yard. You can simply buy the sign and put it in your bedroom or something like that. But anyway, save the lights.
Ron, you just want to talk too about the powwow, since
Okay, yeah.
council will be.
This was school stuff,
yeah.
but May 2nd and 3rd, our powwow will be coming to town for the 2nd year in a row. We're real excited. There's a lot of energy. We've got a number of vendors who will be presenting. We've got a larger group of dancers who will be coming this year, so it ought to be a lot more fun. Hopefully the weather holds out, and we'll be celebrating that. Also, the trolley service is going to, and working along with Vita and the Pottsgrove Manor, we've been able to work out a route where the trolley service will travel from the manor downtown, make a circuit around to the park. And so folks, we encourage to park downtown. Much more parking there than there is in the park and at the manor. And just jump on the trolley. It's going to be running on a regular schedule. Should be able to get from one place to the other. The high school marching band is going to kick off the classic car program at about 4:30 in the afternoon, coming down High Street. So it'd be a good time for folks to maybe take a trip downtown and stop in and see some of the merchants on your way over too. Yeah, and so that's about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, the ad hoc zoning and animal, Councilor Miller.
I do animal first. This month I want to do a special thank you to Mark Flanders and Chief Drumheller. for their continued support of the Animal Committee's efforts and coordinating with the State Dog Warden to do dog license checks in the borough. And we plan to have these done twice a year. We want responsible people and we want responsible pet ownership. And as the federal, state, and your local government move towards greater animal protections, you're going to continue to see changes in the borough of Pottstown. I have a couple questions for the solicitor regarding animal ordinances, and then I'm hoping for our committee to meet again next Wednesday. And the zoning, I'm going to turn over to Chuck.
Thank you. The Ad hoc Zoning Committee has been meeting on a regular basis. If council recalls, last month the council approved that a public hearing be established for our next meeting in May to consider adding definitions and changing some of the definitions and provide for uses in various districts. So you'll see that at the next meeting. But in the meantime, the committee has been looking at some of those new uses that have been defined by the ordinance change, and the committee would like to consider those types of uses by special exception in the district. And just to give you some examples, continuing care home, treatment centers, adult daycare, personal care home, they're all now defined in the ordinance when you have the public hearing next month. So the committee is looking at the conditions or criteria that are necessary to allow those uses in the particular districts. And I think the committee is asking you consider moving ahead with these additional regulations. So again, in the queue, usually takes about 60 days to get everything in final ordinance form, advertise the public hearing, provide notice to both the County Planning Commission and Local Planning Commission. So if you're okay with the direction this is going, on Monday night, if you would authorize the preparation and advertisement of the ordinance and public hearing, it would be ready for your consideration at the June meeting. So we continue the process of updating the ordinance and having the hearings and keep moving forward. So if you have any questions, I'm sure Cheryl and the other committee members can answer them. But what we're trying to do is just make steady progress rather than wait till everything gets reviewed. Otherwise, it seems to take a lot longer.
The existing uses, though, that are out there would be grandfathered in.
Yes, obviously any zoning change applies only to a new use. If it's already there, it's existing, pre-existing, non-conforming, and the new regulations wouldn't be applicable to those.
Or any conversions, newer conversions.
Any questions? Okay. Bicentennial, Councilor Clark.
Yes, we have quite a bit that's going on. Now, Mr. Williams had said about the powwow. That's everything that, all the events that are happening in Pottstown all have a bicentennial theme. And Mr. Williams had talked about the powwow at Manatoni Creek, the Nostalgia Night car show, May 2nd. May Days at Potts Grove, that's also on May 2nd. And the rededication of Rupert Elementary School, that's May 2nd. Sly Fox Bachfest Goat Race at Sly Fox Brewery, May 3rd, Circle Progress. Schuylkill River Sojourn in Riverfront Park on June 9th. Bicentennial Community Days at the Park, Memorial Park, June 13th, featuring musical performances by local musicians Kendall Conrad and Hillbilly Shakespeare. Family-friendly activities, food, Sly Fox Beer Garden, and quite a bit more. And the Pottstown Rumble, June 25th, 28th, Memorial Park. And that's the largest tournament of its kind to bring players to Pottstown from all over the world by the hundreds, all in our own backyard. And these all have a bicentennial theme, and that's just till June. After this date, we still have more upcoming.
Any questions?
Yes, one. Where is that list of dates published?
I can get copies.
Is that on our website?
I'm also going to have he's also going to put it on. Yeah, you can put it on the Borough website. He's also going to put it on.
Just so the people watching know where they can look for it.
Yes, we're sending him information. He's going to put that on TV also.
Good.
Along with that, too, Nathaniel Guest was at our last meeting, and he's going to try and coordinate some special train runs, especially on the car nights that are here, and also, I think, for the 4th of July, he's going to try and have train running there and a couple other events.
Great.
These will all be special runs where people from the can hop on the train from the Pottstown area, get off here in Pottstown, spend some time, and then head back. So. Okay, now we're up to the presentation of the Pottstown Regional Planning Commission. I want to introduce Meredith. Everyone knows, and we're losing Meredith. We wish you the best. She's moving on to Chamber of Commerce in Philadelphia.
Yeah, the Department of Commerce and Real Estate Development. But it's been such a pleasure working with the borough these past 3 years. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Welcoming Donna, your last Fabre? Faber. So she's going to be also part of our planning group too. So. And she's also doing the sustainability study, picking that up. So I guess you'll have a couple hours sleep every night, I guess. So.
Well, we are here tonight to talk about the regional comprehensive plan that has been in the process of being updated for about the past, I want to say 1.5 years, but it's probably going on closer to 2 years at this point. And so, we are getting close to having what we hope is a finished product with that. It's been kind of in the review process, the stage it's in for a little bit. So we're here tonight to kind of present the plan as it is today and get any additional comments you have. Pardon?
Are they okay?
Oh, yeah, they're great. Thank you. So just the plan is quite large. Covers 8 municipalities in the Pottstown region. There's a lot of information in it. So I'm not going to talk in detail about everything that's in there. We'd be here a very long time. So I'm really just going to go over the changes from when the last plan was written to this plan. The last plan was written in 2007 when it was adopted. And so there was a lot of data and information that was definitely out of date, a lot of things that have changed in the region that we wanted to bring up to current standards. But really the layout of the plan and the type of information that's in it is really the same. 10 chapters in each version in 2007, and in the proposed plan, the 10 chapters really, they align, the information is, very similar. So the draft chapter 1, the regional profile, this information is, contains all your information about demographics and housing and economic development, that sort of thing. And we really just updated the facts and figures. So we use up-to-date census information and community survey data to update all of this using the most recent 2010 and American Community Survey data that we had. So things like the population change. Pottstown, for example, increased a little over 2% between 2000 and 2010. Changes in the population forecast figures as provided by DVRPC, which is a change of 6.4% for the borough from 2010 to 2040. Update information about our employment projections for the region. And please stop me if I'm going too fast or if you want to look at anything in greater depth. Update information about per capita and median income throughout the region and in each municipality. And how
this plan is also, there's a link on our website to the county website, correct?
Correct, yes. And so, yeah, this plan, we have a regional website that the drafts of this plan and kind of summaries are also posted there as well. Information about households in the borough and in the region as a whole is included in this chapter. Owner versus occupied housing, all that sort of thing. So I'm not going to go into every kind of thing we updated, but that's the type of information that's in that chapter, and we did, update that to the best of our ability and information that we had available. Draft chapter 2 is the goals and objectives. Most of the goals are really the same throughout the 2005 and 2007 and 2015 plan. We did add some goals to this plan, and so those will be in red on the screen. And so a lot of these new goals came from other plans that were written in the past few years. So the region had a Penn State Park study that was done for the area. It had a fiscal impact study that looked at economic development opportunities in the area. And so we tried to kind of pull those other plans that were done in the past 10 years and incorporate those goals and findings into the goals of this plan as well, kind of bring it all together. So in general goals, we added a goal to pursue economic development strategies, including targeted industrial, commercial, and office-related activities that are appropriate for the region. We also added a goal to employ municipal and land use practices that will help to conserve natural resources, reduce energy consumption, and improve the environment, kind of a sustainability aspect of the plan. We added a few economic development goals, which previously had really focused more on commercial, but we added more of a additional focus of industrial and office to that as well. Prioritizing and attracting development that meets the needs of the region's population, attracting multi-tenant as well as R&D office development, attracting industrial development that is of a consumer-oriented products, including things that will possibly build on the region's proximity to the Schuylkill River and all the recreation options that are going on here. We added a goal to prioritize economic development in certain locations where you already have the transportation and utilities available to make that work. We added a goal of creating a competitive advantage for the region's business community by promoting resource conservation and sustainable development practices. And we also added goals related to tourism and capitalizing on the region's economic development as it relates to tourism and bringing people here through your natural resources and activities that you have going on. We added one housing goal, which is to provide for housing and continuing care opportunities for older adults. We added a few parks and recreation goals. Again, these are mostly from the Penn State Parks and Recreation Study that was done in 2010 by the Pottstown Health and Wellness Foundation. These include to create well-rounded parks that provide a full range of opportunities, to prioritize the completion of the Schuylkill River Trail between Phoenixville and Pottstown, to continue to pursue public and private sector funding opportunities to enhance your parks and recreation in the region, as well as to promote active transportation as part of an active living strategy, so things like walking and biking. We added one open space goal to embrace infill strategies that minimize low density and non-contiguous growth, so let's concentrate our growth in the areas that are already developed. We added a resource protection goal to promote the stewardship of natural lands and pursue best management practices that limit fragmentation and restore links between forests and reduce invasive species in the region. We added an agricultural goal to promote community gardens, as well as several transportation goals, things like supporting improvements to Route 422 and its interchanges, maintaining and improving the existing road network, expanding and enhancing the region's airport, maintaining the short line rail access to Keystone Boulevard, to promote expansion of public transportation options, including passenger rail that would connect Pottstown to Philadelphia. We know that's a long shot, but we put it in there. Promote shared parking where appropriate, improve connections between Montgomery County and Chester County municipalities. And you had a connections plan with North Coventry, which is where some of this also came from. We didn't add any additional community facilities goals, so those are the same as they were in the 2007 plan. Draft Chapter 3 includes your natural and cultural resources. The only change that really happened in this area was an update to our farmland preservation statistics. So preserved farms are the ones that have sold the rights to build on it, anything that's non-agricultural. So this land must remain farming for perpetuity. In 2007, you had 3,671 acres of preserved farms in the region. Today you have 3,993, so that number has gone up. The existing land use chapter, again, we just updated the information. So we use the counties, both Montgomery County and Chester County, because we have North and East Coventry in the region. We use their Board of Assessment data to update, what the actual land use is today on the ground. So just kind of a breakdown of the housing, the residential, non-residential, your other uses like agricultural and developed, updating all those acres and percentages of area in the region. So this is the draft future land use chapter is really, I would say, the bigger change that's in the plan. And so this is where maybe the plan differs the most from 2007. And what we did here was we kind of took out some of the limits that had been put in place in 2005. So in 2005, this is what the future land use map looked like, and these were the land use categories that were included. You have 7 different categories. Each of them came with kind of a description of what that type of development, what that area should look like, what type of development should go there, and it also had hard density and intensity limitations on your residential and non-residential development. So, for example, in your suburban residential, you could have residential up to 5 dwelling units per acre. And every municipality in 2007 that was a part of the region had to bring their zoning in line with these limits. In the past 8 years, and I certainly wasn't here with the region for that whole time, but there have been municipalities that have sought to change their zoning in areas that wouldn't necessarily conflict with the goals of the future land use plan. But it might be something like allowing an slightly increased density in their more open space conservation areas as a incentive for doing cluster development and preserving greater percentages of open space. So, you get a slight density boost if you preserve 70% of the tract that you're developing. So we saw kind of a lot of changes like that, where the density was, wanting to be changed, but the overall result of the change wouldn't have been something that really conflicted with the goals of the plan. And so in this plan, we talked a lot about it at the regional level. And we wanted to simplify things a little bit, make it a little bit easier for municipalities to adjust their zoning to fit their needs, but also meet the goals of the plan. So what we did is we combined these 7 categories into really just 4. You have your regional core, which is still Pottstown, the center of the region here. You have your primary growth areas. These had previously been broken up into things like your villages versus your community center and your regional commerce. Every municipality knows where it wants to focus its growth. So, let's just focus our growth there and leave it up to each municipality to decide what type of development they want to see there. Secondary growth areas is sort of a result, kind of a continuous flow of the previous suburban residential areas. And these are, geared towards your more residential types of development. And then the rural resource area, we have termed the conservation area in this plan. So fewer categories. And within each category, for each category, we have a land use intent statement. And this is really the statement that gets at what the overall vision for this area is, and what the goals are generally. And then for each land use area, we also recommend which uses are maybe the most appropriate for that area through a chart. And then each of those uses has recommendations for the type of development. So for example, medium density residential, we include objectives for that type of development, appropriate locations, density recommendations, lot size, layout recommendations, building type recommendations, building design, roadways and access, pedestrian facilities. Again, they're all recommendations. We include charts and graphs and pictures to kind of give an example of what maybe the best building design or open space layout could look like. But there's no hard limits. So that's the big change, is we took out where we previously had a max on residential density or commercial development intensity, we took out those limits. And it doesn't mean that municipalities aren't still required to have their zoning in line with the plan. The zoning still has to meet the intent of these areas. And so that's sort of, it is a little bit more up for interpretation, I suppose. Rather than set a hard number, it's something that the committee, the regional committee, when a zoning change is proposed, will sort of look at the change and make a decision of, is this meeting the overall intent of this land use district? Are there any questions about that? That's the big change, I'd say, in the plan. Okay. So Chapter 6 is economic development. Again, we updated a lot of this information with recent census and ACS data. We added some of the new goals were also reflected in the goals section that were added in this chapter as well. And a lot of the new goals came from the fiscal impact study that was done. So we updated information about commuting patterns in the region. We added a section summarizing some of the region's economic development assets. I think it's good to highlight those things in the plan. You have a lot of assets here in the region. It's a good place to talk about them. Chapter 7 is housing. We updated this information to reflect current housing data, including the number and types of housing found in the region. And we also updated the fair share analysis, which is an important aspect of this plan. So just a little bit of information about the types of housing that you have in the region. It's mostly single-family detached. in Pottsgrove, you do have the largest number of housing units in the region, and you also have the highest number of other types of housing units. So your single-family attached and multifamily housing there's a lot more here than in the other parts of the region. And so fair share housing kind of relates to that non-single-family detached housing type. So anything that's single-family attached, your multifamily, your mobile homes, all of those would count as the fair share housing types. And these are housing types that have been deemed affordable by the Pennsylvania courts, and they pretty much any municipality is required to provide for them. And the courts have deemed a certain percentage, kind of a range of percentages, is appropriate. As a member of a regional committee, you only have to provide that percentage as a whole region. So as long as, you're meeting it at the overall, for everyone, it doesn't matter if, potentially another municipality, one of your neighboring municipalities falls below that percentage, because you would be looked at a whole if there was ever a challenge. And so every few years, we just have to make sure that the region has enough area zoned to allow for these types of fair share housing to meet this minimum threshold. And so the courts have deemed between 2.7 and 3.5% of land set aside, aka zoned for fair share housing types, is enough to meet this requirement. And the Pottstown region definitely meets that requirement. It has about 23.2% of its land would be zoned to allow for these types of housing. So you are well within, wiggle room for meeting that standard. We also looked at future housing needs to determine if there's going to be any issue with the demand for housing and fair share housing and with your future build out. And the projected need, you will be able to build way more, basically, than what the need will be. So you're not in any risk of not having enough fair share housing moving forward.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Go back to that previous slide, just
Sure.
so we're meeting that 23 or that threshold mainly because of Pottstown having
Yes.
the majority.
You
But also then you got to look at what the other communities are offering that we can't offer, such as a quarry.
Yes.
Some of the other things that
Landfill.
Right, landfill. Some of these things that need to be in the zoning, and so.
So Pottstown Borough kind of picks up a little bit of the, the slack maybe in this area, but there are other townships that are providing other uses that, as a region, you don't have to provide for now that you're a member of that. So everyone's doing kind of their part, hopefully.
And there's one of the main reasons for having a regional committee.
Exactly.
You can meet that then very well.
Yes, that's true. So yeah, it is a great thing. It protects the borough and all the other municipalities that are in it for these reasons.
So if I understand you, the region has 10 times the amount of the minimum
Yes.
fair housing required.
Well, it's the zoned land
Yeah.
that would allow for it. So it might not have. I mean, the units wise, it's not really. That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at how much land could be zoned. And definitely, I'd say in 2007, I think it was much more even skewed towards the borough providing the bulk of that. Now we are seeing more of the other municipalities allow, cluster developments with a single-family attached. They're definitely starting to include in their zoning ordinances and updates these other types of housing. And that's where a lot of the market is too. So it makes sense. The Chapter 8 is the transportation chapter, and this was updated with a lot of information from DVRPC, things like the Transportation Improvement Program, the projects that are on the list for the upcoming region. We also updated our regional trails network in this chapter. So TIP projects, a lot of them. So this is the map of all the TIP projects in the region, and these are the projects on DVRPC's list for prioritized list of projects for funding and that sort of thing. A lot of them are in the borough, which is great for you. You have your Pottstown area signal system upgrade, the Kime Street Bridge replacement or repair, as well as other improvements to the 422 expressway and interchanges. So a lot of good things, improvements hopefully going on here. And then our regional trails network, we updated our existing as well as our future planned trails. So, and the region's actually working right now with DVRPC to do a more in-depth trails study for the whole region to identify other areas where we can plan these sorts of things. Chapter 9, Parks, Recreation, Open Space. We updated this with all the information we have about what areas are parks and open space in the region. So we updated at the regional level and for each municipality. Just a quick glimpse at Pottstown's park and open space areas. And then we also asked each municipality to give us specific municipal parks and recreation goals. This is great because as a region, you can go after some more funding opportunities that exist. Regional committees and commissions, I feel like, are a great applicant for these sorts of projects, but it also is great to be able to showcase your individual goals in these plans should you go after those grants. Chapter 10, community facilities. We updated our sewer service and water service maps for the region. And that is all. Sorry, I know that was a lot of information, but those are the main updates that occurred in the plan. And I don't know if you wanted to add anything more.
No, we expect to have the group come to consensus at our next regional meeting, which will take place April 22nd. And at that point, we'll be putting the plan out for review and adoption for public hearing. It will be coming in front of the board probably in May or June.
There was one area that brought a little bit of lively discussion. I want to just make sure council knows that it was cleared up as far as I thought. Initially, one of the group members wanted to have in the regional comp plan that there would be no tolling of 422 tied to improvements to 422 and so forth. We improved upon that, and now it's, do you have the language to read?
The region will not support tolling any roads within the region to fund improvements to transportation systems, as the communities would expect other funding agencies to pay for these improvements.
So we still have in there as a goal for the light rail, whether that would ever come in there, but versus just putting a specific that, any of the roads, we would not support any tolling. So we wanted to make sure that any improvements would be done through gas tax, or however, but not through tolling. Just wanted to make sure that's clear. And I think the other communities took back to their respected bodies, and I'm pretty sure that that will be well received.
I'd just also like to, I heard in there that you put the possibility as a long-term, long-shot goal of having the rail between Pottstown and Philadelphia.
Well, not necessarily a long shot, but it's
Well,
not
that's
on
what
the
you
immediate
said.
horizon, I guess is what I meant.
I'm just quoting what you said.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so now I'm going to quote what I'm going to say
Okay.
about a long shot. With some of the community members wanting the recreation goal specific with having a swimming pool. So they were told that unless it was in the plan, even if it is a long shot and there's no immediate plan, that if there would be an occasion that it would come up as a possibility, if it were not in the plan, then it would not be able to be kind of broached. So this is now the third time that we'd like to make sure for those community members that have raised it consistently about a community pool in Pottstown, even if it is a long shot and impossibility at this point, at some juncture, if it is possible, that it would be inclusive in the plan.
Sure. I mean, all the goals have kind of been vetted at the regional level, what we've included. I don't know if that's something.
Yeah, I can take that to the region for this month, and we would add that under the borough's recreation goals, the specific goals outlined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that council's wish to do that?
Is this going to be a community or regional? We're talking about the regional comprehensive plan.
Well, there were specific goals for Pottstown, and this was also brought up at an additional meeting that was held. And then it was also mentioned that unless something like this was in the plan, that it's like, well, it's not part of the plan, so it doesn't have to be attended to, if the possibility did come up. I'm just putting it out there because it was brought up, and I also had made a point at the time that you were here before to make sure that it was included even if it doesn't happen, the fact that it would be on record that it could is my point. That's all.
Well, I just want to weigh in, Mayor. Certainly, I think if there's a chance for funding, it's probably better that it be in the plan, but merely because it's not in the plan doesn't mean the borough can't decide to have its own pool. So
Okay,
just so we're clear on that.
That's
it's-
good clarity, because that was an ambiguous point, which is
I don't
why.
think the region can dictate what the borough wants to do as far as its recreation.
But
It certainly
if
won't
it-
be inconsistent.
If it were in, like other things have been included, that may not happen, same thing, as a specific location. But again, I guess it's council's wish.
The region wants to finance a pool in our town.
Well, we don't know
I have
how
no
the
objection
financing
to
would
that.
happen, we just want to have it as a possibility in our wish list purview, but not saying where the funding will come from, so, that's all.
Well, certainly we can bring it up for discussion at the next meeting, but in light of the fact of our previous experience with a swimming pool, and currently what one of the surrounding communities is having issues with their swimming pool and funding and so forth, if a swimming pool could be self-supporting, I don't think, no one on this body would be against that, but it can't. Even privately, the swimming pools are having issues and so forth, so I certainly don't mind bringing it up, but, or even having it in there, but I think it's a case where, I don't know if the majority of the taxpayers would
Be willing to support it.
Well, I'm not saying they would or wouldn't, I'm just saying that for
funding it.
inclusion purposes of possibility, whether it's impossible today doesn't mean in the future that it would always be impossible, and just to have it as a bullet point, if it's needed to be a bullet point. If it's not, then I'm not.
I think Mr. Garner said it's not needed.
Okay.
We can go forward with it whenever.
That's fine.
We can afford it.
Okay.
Is that something that we have in our, I don't think we have that in our own
That's
comp
not in
plan.
ours.
I'd have to double check on that.
I don't think it is.
I don't recall
Yeah.
it being in our comprehensive plan.
Yeah, it's not coming to mind. Yeah, it did come up for discussion though, so,
We can bring it to the committee and
yeah.
see what the consensus is.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, next presentation is Community Champions, Ted Muselin. Did I say your last name correct?
Close enough. It's Muselin.
Sorry, Muselin.
So, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, Mr. Flanders, and the rest of the council, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Ted Muselin, and I represent Community Champions here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I'm going to just briefly address you on our company and our program, what we do. But I'd really love to get to some question and answers. I feel like a lot of these, the program, what we do and how it works is better answered with a little bit of interchange. So I won't give you a long presentation, I promise. I usually like to start by talking about problems with blight in the communities. It's something I'm sure you're all quite aware of and deal with often. Actually came in earlier today and heard some gentlemen talking about some particular properties. And half the time what you find is it's not just the blighted property. It's not just that the pool hasn't been drained or the grass hasn't been cut or the broken-in window hasn't been boarded up. It's finding who's responsible for those properties. Often they're foreclosed or in REO status or in some phase of that process. And the code enforcement official who's trying to do his or her job and trying to track down code violations has to play Sherlock Holmes. And they have to go to the recorder of deeds and figure out what mortgage is placed on the property. And they have to call the 1-800 number for that bank, only to find out that that mortgage was sold and bundled with some other mortgage, and then it was sold again. I've talked to code enforcement from around the state who've spent literally years on one property just trying to find who the heck owns this thing, who wants to take responsibility for it. And even then, if you do find it, you're talking to this multinational corporation, this mega bank, and trying to convince them that, hey, you need to cut the grass in Pottstown to some guy who answers the phone in Burbank, California for Bank of America, may not be that easy to do. Often you're calling a 1-800 number or a servicing number, and those aren't even the folks in charge of that. When banks foreclose on a property, they write it off, and they move it to a different department on their books, an asset preservation department. So you're not even talking to the right people. So our company was created to help solve this problem. The idea of vacant registry or foreclosure registry systems has come about in the last couple of years. I understand council has actually passed one was it a year back, a little bit ago. We are a third-party provider, a public-private partnership provider of this registry service. Currently, we're operating in Allentown, Bethlehem, Easton, Reading, just came on board in Lancaster, Wilkes-Barre, we're just coming on board on, a host of other small townships and communities. We're at about 22 now in the state of Pennsylvania. By the end of the month, 20 or so in New Jersey. We don't want to create work for code enforcement. I've had a chance to work in my career both at local government, bigger city government, state level, and I'm always impressed with the amount of things people who work for government are able to get done in the limited time they have. If I came into meetings such as this and said, I've got this great program, but I have all this work for your staff to do, probably wouldn't go very far. So our pledge is that we take all the work off your plate. The program works by an ordinance, like you already have, passing it that requires banks to register a property when they're foreclosing. That would be any state of foreclosure. So pre-foreclosure, when this pendants is filed at the courts, or any other pre-foreclosure action, when the actual sheriff sale happens, or also during REO status. So if the bank buys it back, they're able to forced to register it during that process too. It also, in that legislation, requires that the bank take responsibility for that property they're seeking property rights on. With that comes responsibility. So usually there's some kind of language in our model ordinance that requires a bank to maintain that property to the local municipalities' standards. What we've seen is a lot of communities that pass this have some success, right? A couple banks try and be good about it, especially now that it's become more of a public policy people have heard of. Banks will maybe mail in a couple things. You'll get 10, 20, maybe as high as 50% of these properties that come through month-to-month registered. But it sort of ends there. You've got a stack of papers. Maybe you get someone in the office to type them into a little bit of a database that you can research, but you're still calling 1-800 numbers. You still don't have anyone backing you up. And what you've done is created work for the people that already are overburdened with work. So as I started saying, our company does this in partnership with communities, and they do all the work for you. We track down all those banks. We harass them until they register. We're quite good at it. We have a website via which they register electronically. They can do it in mass. They're used to doing it. All the major banks, Wells, Bank of America, Five Brothers, you name a bank, and they're compliant. We have very good relationships with them. They register through our website. There's a whole host of information. And then that website is a tool for your code enforcement officers. They're able to come on, find a property. They can even look it up. We have a mobile app. When they find that property, there are tools on there to communicate right with the bank. So gone are the days of calling 1-800 and tracking people down. The bank has registered an email address to an individual that is responsible for that property from the asset side of their corporation. And you are now emailing through our website directly to that. I like to say it's like you're adding 2 whole extra staffs to your workforce here. One is the group of people we have that are very good at tracking down these properties, getting the banks to register. The second is the group that kicks in after you report a violation. So we've got this great website. It's tracking violations. You report them. You can upload pictures of the violations. But our staff doesn't let it stop there. We call the banks and say, have you cut the grass yet? What's going on? It's been 4 days since this email was sent, no response. So literally the whole process from finding out who the bank is, to communicating with the bank, to following up to make sure the bank actually has their local property manager or REO specialist or whomever cut that grass. We handle it all. We also handle the collection of registration fees, and that's how we get our money. That's how we're paid for our services. Most communities recommend a $200 fee. We split that with you 50-50. We don't get paid unless we collect that money. There's no upfront costs. We also handle that, so no one in your finance office has to worry about collecting those checks and cashing them. The banks pay when they register. They can't register till they've paid. It's ACH payments, so the banks can pay in mass and efficiently. And then we remit a check to you every month for with an accounting, of course, for those banks that have registered. We have a great success rate. Places like Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton, they're going into their second, almost third year with us. Of the numbers, just in case you're curious, Pottstown ranks 11th out of all municipalities in the Commonwealth right now as far as total foreclosures. Over 1,200 foreclosures came up in our database search when we ran it. 337 of those are active, meaning there's some kind of court action going on. The actual sheriff's sale is scheduled, or their REO, meaning the bank owns them now. They put up their lien. So we never can predict, it's sort of like predicting the weather, exactly how many new foreclosures you'll have. But based on what we've seen in other communities around here and in the state, I would imagine you'd see between 30 and 40 new registrations a month with our program. Usually it's about 10 to 15% of that. Your numbers pretty closely mimic Bethlehem's, and that's what they have, a low of 27, a high of 52, but usually right in that 30 to 40 month range. When I got a chance to talk to their staff, they were getting some registrations in, but it was a fraction of that. So, when I have a chance to talk to communities who already kind of get how registry works because they have one, my focus is obviously to talk about efficiency. And while you'll be giving us some of that money, some of that registration fee, you're going to be getting 2, maybe 3 times the number of registrations in. So it's still a net gain for the community. You're not spending money. And as I said, there's no cost out of pocket. We create that website. We work with the banks to get them originally signed up. We have sort of an ongoing electronic contact at all the banks that we upload your city's data to, and it will update them that they need to register. We're also quite aggressive. Some banks had Deutsche Bank, for instance. They have a processing center in Las Vegas or somewhere in Nevada, and once we called one of our staff members called the guys there, and they said there were just tables with piles and piles of registration requests. And we said, well, we're a company that does this professionally, and we have this many requests here, and this many requests here, and this many requests here. And you can either start processing them at the top of that pile, or we're going to start filing court actions on this, and for fines and fees and things like that, which we usually recommend is also in that ordinance. Suddenly, they are our best cooperator. They realize, okay, when they come in from this Community Champions company, they're for real. We're going to play ball with them. We're also not anti-bank. The banks didn't. You can question their choices in writing some of these mortgages, but they certainly did not ask to be the largest property owners in the world overnight. They would be the first to admit they've added it. Sometimes we have to work to even convince them they own a property. Yes, that's yours, Bank of America. I don't know how you lose a couple $100,000 on a property, but we want them to show that we're working with them. So Bank of America, for example, we actually gave them back over $100,000 last year because they misregistered. They registered whole zip codes that were wrong. And they remitted it to us. We sent it right back. So we have a great working relationship with those banks. I certainly can't promise they're going to be good neighbors overnight. But often the squeaky wheel, you're all in government, you understand, the squeaky wheel often gets the grease. And so if you have a professional company representing you to these banks on an ongoing basis, the chances that grass does get cut, that window does get boarded up, that pool does get drained, we have found it increases exponentially. Not only that, communities like Allentown have found it turns those properties over quicker. Because now if you're that asset manager for the bank and you've got a list of 1,000 properties on your daily register, and those 2 or 3 from that Pottstown place where they're constantly calling and complaining, we want to sell those as quick as possible. So maybe we should have done a short sale. Maybe we will accept a little less on the write-off. And we've had great success. Allentown has predicted, and this isn't my data, but they've said it's doubled their rate of return. Their code enforcement officer, his name is David Paulus, and Dave says it's in some cases doubled. So I'll stop rambling at this point, but I'd love to answer any questions you have or dig into the program. I have a short presentation I can hand out for you all to take with you then for some background information on what we do and things like that. Thank you.
Questions?
What was the mode of payment? How you make your money in this split?
Sure. So our system in all those communities I listed, we recommend a $200 fee for registration that bank pays. They pay through us, so you don't have to worry about all the processing. ACH is electronic payment. It's like a direct bank transfer. They ACH your payment to us. So if you work for Bank of America and you've got 100 properties registered today, you don't have to handwrite 100 checks. You can just direct one payment to us. We cut you a check, however you'd like it, physical or ACH, in the amount of exactly half, 50%. So 100 for us, 100 for you. And we mail that check or electronically send that check to you with a printout of everything that was registered and exactly how much they paid. And all that data is available to you. There's a bunch of interesting search tools. So you can always go on the website and actually search who is registered on what dates. I mean, it's a very interactive website. And sometimes I like to get into it and demonstrate it, but I usually find in counseling meetings like this, folks just want to ask questions first. We can always demo it later if you'd like. But it's a web-based system, so any computer anywhere can get on it.
And you said 22 in Pennsylvania and 20 in New Jersey. So are you setting sites in communities, or are you just doing everything by cyberspace, from?
So I live here, I work in Pennsylvania, I'm the local representative for the company, but all the databases themselves are online database, so it's cloud-based, if you will. So the ability, not just for any of your code enforcement officers or council people or yourself, Madam Mayor, to access it. You can access it from home, you get a constituent service call, you can pull it up and see what's going on, you can access it from the office, you can access it from the road. Like I said, we have a mobile app that actually allows you to pull up a map and look at all the foreclosed properties around here if you're a code enforcement officer. But it's also good for extra use, economic development. Wouldn't it be great to include in planning overlays and show, which our website has the capability, all the properties that are blighted in a particular neighborhood that you're applying for funding for. Additionally, police and fire. I talk to a lot of officers who say, hey, I'm responding to a problem, there's a break-in, there's a disturbance. I'd love to quick pull up that property and see, has the bank reported it vacant or not? Maybe they registered as foreclosed, but not yet vacant. Maybe they registered as foreclosed and vacant. It's good knowing walking in. It's a safety issue for them as well. So, but yes, all in a very long manner answer your short question. Yes, it's all virtual.
Okay.
The basis for the registration then is foreclosure or vacancy, or what is the basis
Well,
that you get?
so lawyer to lawyer, it's a little convoluted. We call it vacant registry because people get the idea of vacancy. But if you only make actual physical emptiness and vacantness as the standard, we find you miss upwards of 60 or 70% of the problem properties. So we, in the beginning of our model ordinance, define vacancy as obvious vacancy and any property that a bank is pre-foreclosing on, is pendants, notice of public notice of default, any stage of sheriff sale, any REO status. It's a robust definition of vacant in our model. And we can work with any you have. It's much easier if we can just key in on everything that a bank is pushing through.
Those might even be inhabited?
I'm sorry?
The other categories might also be inhabited?
Sure. And
or occupied?
Yeah, occupied, absolutely. And we find there's actually a lot of problems with those properties. So let's say you're a homeowner and you got into trouble, maybe you lost your job, something like that, and the bank's telling you got to get out. Well, do you really care that much about cutting the grass? Some people do, and they mow it up to that day they leave. Some people kind of get a much more difficult attitude, we'll call it, and they don't want to do anything about it. And banks, when we first started kind of introducing this about 4 or 5 years ago, banks said, oh, but you're making us fix properties we don't technically own yet. Yeah, but anyone who's ever seen a mortgage knows that banks have all kinds of leeway under that mortgage to preserve that asset and go on that property if someone's in default on it. So the minute that property goes in default and you're filing legal paperwork on it, the banks have a right to go in and do something like cut the grass. And, often we go into these communities and you folks are put in a bad position because you've got code enforcement officials, you've got maybe a grounds crew or a public works crew, and citizens say, well, you've got those guys, why don't they come and cut the grass? Well, now you're asking a public official to go on private property, risk liability. What if they get injured? What if they mess up a piece of equipment? What if they harm the house and there's a lawsuit? I mean, it's just a whole, hornet's nest you want to get involved in. So this allows you to force the banks to do it. And they do have a legal right to be there, and they have their own insurance and their own liability worries, but it doesn't have to be yours anymore.
So you guys monitor court filings or whatever it is, so as soon as a bank initiates whatever phase of the foreclosure, that's when you would start reaching out to them and say, hey, you have an obligation to register.
Yeah, it's a multi-tiered system. It's sort of a proprietary system. It involves monitoring of court documents with the Pathonetary's office. Most county courthouses have it digital. If not, we can find sort of a workaround. There are also private databases out there that track this. There's different companies that actually send people to physical courthouses and record them all. So we buy into those and we sort of amalgamate the data, and then we follow up individually. So we don't just take it at its word. We'll go pull those documents ourselves. We'll call the banks. There's a thing called MERS. It's a national tracking database, and we tap into that as well and use that data.
And so once you identify these properties and get the bank or mortgage holder to register, then that's how you get your payment through that registration fee.
Sharing that, yeah.
What's your incentive then to follow through to make sure that the property remains compliant with all of our ordinances?
Well, that's what we do. I mean, I guess if you went to an auto body shop and you paid the guy ahead of time to fix your car and he did a bad job, you wouldn't come back and use that auto body shop anymore. So I don't know that there's a financial incentive. I mean, we don't get repaid if we do a great job following up, but you certainly have a choice to renew with us or not. We have never had a community leave working with us. Most of them, like I said, in Pennsylvania, are on their coming up on their third renewal. And actually, Allentown was arguing with its solicitor. They wanted to see what was the maximum renewal they could just put in on a contract, so they didn't have to worry about it every year. So if I'm being honest, there's no financial incentive, but we take pride in what we do, and we're, I think, a very good company. And I know our biggest cheerleaders have been code enforcement officers at other communities. It's rare I walk into a community now and they said, "Oh, we haven't heard from so-and-so or this guy." And like any company that's for profit, we want to grow, and we wouldn't grow very fast if we did a bad job at that stuff. There's a slight financial incentive, actually, though, because we usually recommend an annual registration. So some of these properties take longer than a year. We monitor that. That 1 year comes up, we want the bank to register it again, to pay that fee again, to split it with us again, but also to report on new information. So maybe the first time they registered, it was pre-foreclosure, Liz pendants, they just filed something with the court, and by the time they're registering it a year later, maybe it's an REO. Well, maybe it was occupied then, it's not occupied now. Maybe, something in the status of it has changed, and that's good knowledge that you want to get to your staff. So we do have some incentive there.
And does your model require another registration, even if it's during the course of the year when the status changes, if it's Liz pendants, if it's actual foreclosure, if it's now REO, every time the status changes, it's another registration?
So it's obviously up to the purview of council, some of the bells and whistles they want to put in any ordinance. In our model one, in our recommended one, absolutely. We say that it's supposed to be inspected every month or every 2 months, I've seen both ways, by the bank, and the bank has to update for vacancy, especially for vacancy. One of the tools on the website is actually an evidence of vacancy button. So if you're a code enforcement officer and you walk by a property and it looks like it's vacant, even if it's not registered yet, even if there's a question, you go on and hit that button, type in a little note what you saw, and our team will then research it and check it out. You have a lot of properties that go vacant not because of foreclosure, right? Maybe someone passed away and there was no one there to inherit it. Maybe someone walked away. We can research those for you, tell you if there's a responsible party like a bank. But we've seen a lot of communities. Reading was big on this, for instance. They said, "Hey, we've got a bunch of landlords," we'll use that term loosely, who don't ever really monitor these properties. They're holding them because someday maybe they'll develop them. But we want to get them to register too. And any individual, any corporation, any bank, anyone can go in through our web portal and register. It's very user-friendly. They just have to register for an account. It's free. So if you have landowners here who have vacant properties that aren't a bank, they can also register through this and also have the information and sign themselves up. So when a notice comes through, we communicate with them just like we would a bank. And we've had success with that. The only difference is we can't be as proactive about it, unless we sent someone out looking through windows to see if something's vacant or not. You got to tell us about those, but we can certainly help you with them as well.
I was wondering, once these are, the bank knows all their properties and they're registered, does that give them more of an incentive to turn them over and get them up ready for sale and get new owners into them? Does that help?
Well, I would never assume to understand the logic of large banks. But yes, I do believe it does. Many of our community partners here in Pennsylvania have seen that, like Allentown. I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and if you're in charge, most of these individuals who work for the banks, who monitor these things, they have a whole roster of properties they're in charge of. And if there's a problem property on that roster, and you're getting a realtor telling you, "Oh, we got to lower the price," and you're saying, "No, I want to hold out. I want to keep that maximum value," but then these Pottstown people, they won't let it go. They keep telling us about the grass. They keep telling us about this. Suddenly maybe you want to make that deal. Suddenly you want to get rid of it. So I don't think there's an official policy that says, "Oh, if they sign with community champions, we're going to sell those properties quicker." I just think it's natural human behavior that you're going to want to get rid of the
But I
problems
would think the bank would want to, unload these homes if at all possible.
And it's sort of like the Wild Wild West. I mean, some of these banks don't even know what they have, or they haven't realized. Yeah. There was one in Bethlehem. The code enforcement officer said, "I'm pretty sure I want you guys to come in." This was several years ago. "I like your program, but I got a test for you. I got one property. It's been over 2 years," he said. "I've been trying." I said, "There's been notices from Bank of America on the door." And I called Bank of America. They said, "That's not ours." I said, "If you can get me proof it's theirs, you got my support. I'll push you to council." Well, we found it, and it took us a couple days. We got the MERS number, everything. He was able to call them. They said, "Oh, that's ours." Oh, and he said, "Look, here's a picture of a roof caving in. It's a danger." And suddenly that was sold within a couple months. So he loved us. Mike Palos was his name. Is his name. So yeah, I think it does. I just don't have some statistical proof. I don't want to say it's guaranteed to do it twice twice as quick.
But I would think that banks would want to get rid of them and not pay these registration charges.
I'll tell you what, that is a common conception. I don't think they care. Because some communities have had escalating fees. You know, if it's there so many months, it goes up. If it's there so many years, it doubles, triples. When you're talking about a property that's $50, $100, $200, $300, whatever, $1,000, $100 it's you know, they're in it for the thousands. They're in it for maximum. And if you go any bigger than that, well, now it's not a registration fee. Now it's not, you're not justifying the cost of operating the program. Now it's a backdoor tax, and you get in legal trouble. So I would advise against that. But it's really more the people at the bank on the ground level that have to deal with these properties. They don't want to deal with them anymore if you're complaining a lot. And complaining is the wrong word. It's telling them what they need to do with their own property. I mean, it can sound retarded. They want to get rid of those properties because of that. And so if you're making it known that this is a problem property, it's a problem for the community, you're going to have to do stuff with this, they're highly incentivized to get that problem off their roster.
I was reading a little further in your model, and is there something in there that your company assists with the sale of the property being turned over to nonprofits, or assist in some way with the property sales?
So it's not necessarily part of this program. We have a nonprofit wing of our company. Our founders are very philanthropic. They really believe in helping out in the mission of this company. So they started a nonprofit wing. A lot of times these banks, the property isn't worth anything. They'd rather just write it off. We see a lot of different community groups, CDCs, things like that, benefiting from it. So what our nonprofit wing did, it's headed by one of our founders' father actually, is they said, look, banks, as we work with you, as we develop this relationship, if there's stuff you're just going to write off, give it to us. We've got a nonprofit. You can write it off. It's a tax write-off. You've already written off the mortgage as a loss anyway. Get the tax write-off now too. And allow us to rehab it. And usually there's some restrictions on that. You know, we rehab it. We don't sell at market rate. It's usually low-income housing, often for families, things like that, veterans potentially. We've started doing one or two in Pennsylvania. The company based out of Florida, which was the worst hit by the mortgage foreclosure, and they've done a couple down there, and it's been real successful. So it's a side piece, and we're always looking to get involved. So if there's an opportunity to do that, we'd love to hear about it. And we've got a couple full-time staff that do that. But the two aren't really necessarily, they're related as far as the properties we're talking about, but not necessarily as far as how the program works.
On that side piece, though, it would be definitely a turnover to home ownership. It would not be a turnover to an investment.
No. And often there's restrictions in the deed when the company sends it to us. And like I said, we've done one in Pennsylvania, and it was sold to a family. It was out in Western Virginia. But and it's not just the family. It's usually low-income housing, or it's not even market rate housing. If not, the bank won't write it off because they're looking to be good in the community that they hurt a little bit by this mortgage in the first place.
And is there a fee for the municipality to register with you as a vendor? Is that separate from the registration fee you're collecting from the bank and splitting? No.
Any government entity that would register a property, we don't charge them. So if there's a school board forecloses on a property, or if there's a federal loan that's being foreclosed on, we don't. They can come in and register to provide the information to your code enforcement, but we don't charge them a fee. And there's no fee for you to set it up or anything like that. Purely the only money we will ever get is from sharing that registration fee with you. The only potential caveat is we have to get some tax assessor's data in the very beginning, and different counties deal with that very differently. So if there is a cost, we just say, look, we'll front it, we'll pay it up front, but as the registrations come in, we allow us to just reimburse ourselves for it out of those registrations, so you don't have to pay anything up front. But that's rare. We've only, of the 22 or so in Pennsylvania, I think we had that with one or two of them. And it was a county that just wanted to play hardball, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. The minimum contract is 1 year?
That's up to you.
Okay. What's our current fee for our properties now as far as vacant? It's what?
It starts off at 100 and it escalates every year.
And if compliance is not occurring, what's your relationship with district magistrates?
So we work with you guys, and so the way we work it is we prefer to lead with the carrot rather than the stick. We call the banks, we harass them, we get them registered, we don't get paid. In extreme cases where they wouldn't, the ball would be in your court, and we would have a conversation with them. We'd say, all right, look, this one bank isn't registering, we've called them, they know, they're just being obstinate, We haven't had a case like this, by the way, in years. This is back when this was a new idea and first getting started in banks. Sick the heck are you? Don't do that anymore. But if that would occur again, we'd work with you and your solicitor and your staff to say, hey, do we want to file an action? You know, do you want to potentially put a lien on these properties? And that is an option, like that Deutsche Bank example I gave earlier. But we don't do that. We wouldn't necessarily do that on your behalf. We wouldn't want to overstep. We'd do that in conjunction with you. That would go through your solicitor or whoever you hired to do that.
When you say we would do that, you mean you would provide the information to our
Correct.
solicitor and our staff? It would still be, that would still fall on the borough?
Not their function.
Yeah, I mean, any situation like that, there's a lot of communication going on. So we would work with you at the same time. I mean, at the same time, maybe the solicitor was preparing the court documents, we'd be calling the bank and say, here's a copy of the document, we're going to file it tomorrow. I mean, it would be a give and take. We have a whole team of people. I mean, just for Pennsylvania alone, I think there are 8 or 9 people. That's all they do is call banks and talk to them, full-time trained professionals. So whoever would be assigned to this municipality would say, here's our data, here's what's going on. I mean, it would be a give and take.
It's kind of putting the shoe on the other foot. But banks don't like it.
Right, but
I bet not, yeah.
But along the way, there'd be trigger points that, naturally our ordinances, if they're not doing this in so many days and or months or whatever, we'd be in touch with you saying, hey, the bank's not doing what they're supposed to.
Yes.
Are you in touch with them? Because we don't want to pull the trigger if you're in talks with the bank and then all of a sudden.
We find it's much better for the community. So even if we have to wait a little bit, but to get finally that bank on board and communicating and cutting that grass or boarding that window, than it is to just file arbitrary fines or liens that they're not going to pay anyway. It's going to be a lien on the house. You're going to have to wait till it's sold, and that's half the problem. Our goal is always to get compliance and to get those problems fixed. If along the way in a discussion with us, you say, hey, we got to push the gas harder, we want to file some legal actions, we're 100% supportive of that, but we don't necessarily advocate that as the first step.
And when the banks walk away and say, we're done with this property, do you deal with land banks or land trusts?
What do you mean when you say deal with?
Well, do you make an offer to, and rather than you take the property and say, well, we're going to fix it up and rehab it?
So the number of properties we register, and we register probably 300 to 400 a month right now in Pennsylvania. And in my time working with the company in the last 5 years, we've only been given one. And that one, it just didn't look like a great idea. We did some rehab, we sold it to a family, that was it. So yeah, if theoretically they started suddenly giving us a bunch of these properties in Pennsylvania, I think a land bank would be on the list of people we would consider. But it's a smaller part of what we do. We do it when we know there's properties. It's especially focused in Florida right now because that's where the company's headquartered, and some of the local banks there especially participating. But if we had an opportunity to partner with a bank who's looking to do that, often banks don't want to completely write off an entire property they own. But if we had an opportunity, yeah, I think a lot of it would depend on what the community wants. Usually, the first step that they go through is to contact a local CDC, something like a land bank, another nonprofit, and see if they want to co-partner, if they want to take the lead. I mean, it's a very flexible operation.
One of the problems we have in our community is, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but very affordable houses as far as prices. So if you get a half double that's selling for $80,000, and people haven't been paying taxes on it. I mean, within 4 or 5 years, the taxes could be $25,000 on that house. So that's the problem we face, and we got people that just walk away. From it. So.
Unfortunately, that is not common just to Pottstown. You're seeing a lot of that frustrated homeowners just surrendering it, whether it's done in a proper legal manner or it's done with just a backpack and a walk out the door. But it's happening, and there's cases where it's not even on purpose. Like I said, someone passes away, and the heir lives in, I don't know, down south somewhere or out west somewhere, and the property isn't worth what back taxes are owed, and they say, I don't want to. Why go through all the hassle for almost no, if any, profit? So yeah, we deal with those, and we can help with those. But our best tool is getting you in touch with that responsible party. Instead of having to go A, B, C, D, E to get to them, it's right from A to E when you see the problem. Our job is that middle part.
Council feel like this is something we should have staff pursue as far as getting some more?
I don't see how we have anything to lose at all by having staff pursue it.
Okay.
Well, thank you for
Move
your
to
time.
next step.
I will definitely, I have some presentations here. I think I have enough for everyone. Let me just maybe pass them down or something, but thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
If I can just go on record as saying something to the council here regarding the tier or prioritization, whereas Mr. Musellin just let us know that as far as what's vacant, we have to let him know. So I think it would be fair to not show ourselves as potentially heavy-handed, to take the easy route and put the pre-foreclosure people right in the pool with properties that have been abandoned over 10 years that we know exist in the community. If those things begin to happen in that kind of sequence, it could send a message, of, even if it's not a heavy-handed reach, going for the pre-foreclosure before you go for a property that's creating a problem year after year, unattended to year after year, and then here's someone in a pre-foreclosure situation now feeling that they're, under the microscope. It may not be factual or actual.
Well,
it may be perceptual, but I'm just saying that we do know that in the community there are properties that have been, am I correct, Dan?
Yes.
For quite a while that should be first.
Well, I think certainly that would be incumbent upon us, because as he said, he's going to rely on
I
us
just want
to
be
get
on
him that
record
information.
saying it.
But as I understand the program, it's not heavy-handed against the person who took out the mortgage and now, for whatever reason, can't pay it back. They focus on the banks. And I don't have any problem with being heavy-handed on the banks that took advantage of these people.
No, but I think that our emphasis in the beginning as far as being aggressive is going for the most dilapidated for the longest time. And no, I don't have a problem going after banks either. But perceptually, you know how we deal with perceptions.
I understand we're going to have to make some changes to ordinances, and it's up to us to write them.
Okay.
I will agree with Travis that I'm okay with aggressively going after the banks, whether it's pre-foreclosure, foreclosure, or sitting for 10 years.
Right, but as a prioritization.
We have the opportunity
Sure.
to temper that.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Just to clarify, because I don't think I did a very good job of explaining, pre-foreclosure doesn't mean someone who's just behind on their mortgage. It doesn't mean someone who's just having trouble or missed a payment. Could have happened to any of us. Pre-foreclosure means the bank has filed a motion in court and they are going to foreclose. They just haven't scheduled the date yet for the sheriff's sale. So we would never harass some homeowner who's just behind or had a little problem. This is, they are about to become vacant, is what we focus on. And we heavily recommend including all properties that are either vacant or about to become vacant, because if not, you're just waiting till the problem kind of occurs. And we never harass the homeowner. This information is not public. No one knows if they're on this database. It would be awful if we were embarrassing people who are still in homes. That's certainly not our we've never done that. It's certainly not our goal to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
But just, Councilman
Say, well, you tell me
Gary.
when you want me to leave, and I'll.
I just want to clarify that.
We have a very active blighted property review committee.
Okay.
And I am thinking at this time we would want those to be top priority. These are already identified as being vacant, and they have code enforcement violations.
Yeah, and I don't know that.
Is there a way to prioritize this?
Well, no, because we don't need to. We do them all at once, and we do them all quickly.
Right, I mean, this is bulk sales stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you're dealing with an in-house staff that has only so many hours in a day and more things to do than those hours, telling them to prioritize this over that makes a ton of sense. We're going to do them all. We're going to do them well. So it will be everyone. Pre-foreclosed, vacant. You give us a list, we'll import it immediately. We'll code it as problem. We just need a little help on, who might some of those responsible parties for the vacant but not foreclosed be. But anything that has anything to do with a bank, it's and a lot of this is computerized. It's proprietary systems we have. So we'll get them all that we can as quickly as we can.
Right.
At least 30 to 40 a month, I guess.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
When I pose my questions or comments, it's really to push the envelope for the person who's watching that may not be getting a complete understanding. So therefore, it can come forward so that they can hear that it's exactly not whatever. So that's,
nope, I understand.
That's my point.
Sometimes getting an outside firm such as we have with Ordenoff and the water and sewer, I mean, look how that has we're actually getting paid for our water and sewer, for our bills. So that certainly is the end result. We want, what's owed to us, and we want these derelict properties taken care of.
In this way, if we're, if we have a third-party vendor like that tracking down the vacancies and the real estate owned by the banks and things like that, that frees up our codes folks to do what they're supposed to be doing and going out and doing the landlord inspections and the transfer inspections and things like that.
And the one thing that really piqued my interest is the safety factor. We need our firefighters and our police to know what they're going into when they go to a building. If they have to look for a body inside a burning building that is vacant versus one that they know that someone's in there and so forth. So safety is a big thing.
One of the biggest frustrations with vacant properties for the police, the fire department, and codes is knowing who to contact. And if we see this as a tool to get us from A to E rather than playing that game in the middle of the night with a bank.
Because we all know those mortgages are sold. Until you get through a paper trail, it could be 50 banks.
Which, by the way, close at 5 and don't open until Monday morning.
Okay. Whitmer Aircraft Service Lease Agreement. I guess this is you, Erica?
I have a few transportation items.
Yep.
I would respectfully request that we move this to next month. Eve Whitmer, for Whitmer's Aviation, does not completely have the request yet together, but that is in regard to the airport maintenance hangar at Whitmer's Aircraft Service at the airport.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Number 8, Reading Site Contractors.
In regard to the airport, we are coming back with the redevelopment, the runway project, and as such, over the winter months, Reading Site Contractors, they went through a corporate restructuring, so as a result, they are now Reading Materials Division of H&K Group. So now we just would seek your approval to get new insurance certificates and bonds updated with that so that we can proceed with the project. That's all that is.
Any questions on that? Okay, that'll be listed. The next two are PennDOT fiscal year 15-16 local match resolution for operating assistance.
Yes. Typically I come before you annually in May, but PennDOT has initiated our operating agreement earlier, and we're in April, and we are looking at our grant for 15-16. The fiscal year begins in July, but we put together our application now, and the requirement for local match is, it's $77,565 this year. It's 5% more than in the previous fiscal year. And our total grant is $1,194,445. As part of that, we would then go forward with your approval to Montgomery County and to Chester County for the match. That's split 85% to Montgomery County, 15% to Chester County, as part of supporting the transit system. So in previous years, they've been really supportive since we operate within those territories. So we would just be seeking your approval to proceed with that application.
Just so council's aware, this is our bus transportation system.
Has the grant amount decreased too, or just our match increased?
The grant amount did increase.
The grant amount increased and our match increased.
Yes.
Any questions on that one? Okay, that'll be listed. Number 10, PennDOT fiscal year 15-16 for local match for capital assistance.
Yes. We have a variety of different capital programs. This year, we're putting together, we have an existing 12-year capital plan, and we're implementing some previous grants. As a result of doing some review and development, I will ask to pass on this. We do not need local match this year, but I did just want to update you. We're going to be going out to bid on a bus shelter enhancement and replacement. So we were working with PennDOT to figure out and secure the funds needed for that. So we wanted to make sure we had that in the queue if needed this month. So you'll see that downtown, the existing bus shelters will be having solar panels, and we're actually also looking at the availability for security cameras within the bus shelters. And then the existing bus shelters that are blue on the outskirts of the borough and in Lower Pottsgrove will be replaced as well as part of that project. So I just wanted to provide an update.
And this is where we're looking to put one up at the
Yes, we'll be putting a new bus shelter at Memorial Park, potentially right now on King Street, to serve for the Cold Brookdale Tourism Center. And that is part of this project.
Okay, any questions?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
842 Queen Street parking lot improvements, land development. Turn this over to Chuck.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. Presently, 842 Queen Street is a gravel parking lot that is used for parking for the Precision Polymer business in the borough. And the owner has filed a formal request for land development to improve that parking lot to borough standards. I believe there'll be 20 spaces in the lot. It'd be landscaped, stormwater management, striped, everything that the ordinance would require. It went through the planning process. The Planning Commission had no issues with the project as proposed. Mr. Zale, the attorney for the applicant, and Mr. Moyer, the engineer for the applicant, are here this evening if you have any questions. It's really a rather straightforward project. The Planning Commission did grant or recommend 8 waivers be granted. They're all technical in nature, have no issues. Our engineer recommended those waivers as well. Should have that information available to you. I have a full version of the plan if you need to see it. The only real outstanding issue that the Planning Commission discussed and council should be aware of, under our ordinance, there's a fee in lieu of open space, because in this case there was really no open space to dedicate as part of the lot. The applicant has calculated a fee of $1,300, which the Planning Commission felt was a reasonable offer in lieu of any open space dedication. And I don't want to speak for any of you, but if you have anything you want to add at this point or council has questions, I'd certainly open it up.
Questions?
None.
Okay.
It'll be listed then for Monday night for formal approval.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Edgewood Cemetery, I guess this is you.
Yeah. As council's aware, we've had repeated problems with the maintenance of Edgewood Cemetery at High and Kime Streets. And an in-depth investigation has gone into trying to identify a responsible party or entity, and what we've learned is there is no responsible party or entity. Literally, there is no one to attach it to. So essentially, it appears for all practical purposes that maintenance at the Edgewood Cemetery has officially been abandoned, although no one's declared it. And under the Borough Code, the borough has the right to maintain that property and then lien the property, but as council knows, it's very unlikely that we're going to recover the taxpayers' expenditures through that lien process. There's another option, which I think in most cases would probably be less desirable, and that's to petition the court and to take possession of the property as a municipality, either for the control of the borough to try and motivate someone to take over the maintenance of the property, or in some cases possibly if a board was identified to facilitate the transfer of the property to that board. We've had an individual who at this time wants to remain anonymous until a decision is made as to what's going to occur. But he has assured us that he's prepared to develop a board that will take responsibility for the property and move it forward. So we would ask council's permission to begin digging into that a little bit further and moving it forward.
Was it owned by a corporate structure that dissolved? Because it was only, I think, last year, they had the signs up trying to sell.
It's never really been dissolved.
Plots. Okay.
There's nothing that's been dissolved, Mr. Geary. The title search and records show that there was a corporate entity that is the owner that was formed back in the 1800s. But again, I can't speak to whoever's been advertising or doing that. But at this point, through research and effort, we found no members of the board, no active members, no one affiliated with that entity. And I think the last real contact that I saw was back in the 30s.
1930s is the last minutes from the board.
Back, from what we can tell, going back 6 or 7 years ago, there appeared to be some kind of civic group interested in wanting to kind of form something to try and take maintenance, but they have no ownership interest. So I can't speak to what was advertised,
Okay.
But
And, yeah.
there's nothing that we can find that we can tie to any individual who identifies themselves as an officer, director, or shareholder of any corporation that owns that property.
Any idea when the last internment was there? I mean, I don't recall seeing anything recently.
There have been,
Yeah.
I've been here since 1979, and I know there have been internments.
Yeah,
in
since
that cemetery,
then.
which I find interesting since there was no corporate entity
Right,
on board since the 30s.
And there should be perpetual care funds
Well,
somewhere.
That money disappeared around the 1930s, apparently.
I know I had an aunt that was buried there like 20 years ago. So there's been people that were,
Well,
And I had the same thought as you, because I figured there had to be some entity that was active, but then when we dug around a little more, so to speak.
No pun
Again,
intended.
you have a situation where if you own the plot through a deed, I guess you're able to use that and you don't really.
Right, but
need
somebody's
any-
got to open it for you.
Well, again, I assume the undertakers do that as part of the service, so again, I'm not familiar with that industry, but I know what you mean. It seems like somebody should be out there. We haven't been able to locate anyone.
Well, I mean, certainly, if we go the route of, if there are citizens involved in forming a board to take it over, I think that is a great idea, and that is what we should look at. You know, the downside, I mean, if we go to court petition and take it over and it becomes ours, then we are forever taking care of it. I mean, not that it's huge and it's really going to just amount to, you know, grass cutting and things like that, but it is still something that we, the borough, the taxpayers, will be burdened with.
I think if it's possible, and I think this is something that we're going to need to look at from the legal perspective, if it's possible for that entity to form ahead of time and then take possession of it and hand it to them so that they are the legal owners of it,
Yeah.
basically pass it through.
Right.
I think that's the smarter route to take.
I mean, do we know if there's still empty lots for people to use, or,
I mean,
sell?
I can tell you there is empty space with no headstones. Now, I don't know if they've already been sold and are owned by somebody, but well, they should.
Is there on the deed, is there anything with the gravesite layouts or anything that we know of?
No, I don't have anything like that.
Bill, do you know if there's anything at the Historical Society on that? What's that?
There's some.
That could be a start as far as seeing, you know.
Could we advertise asking if anybody has deed to a lot there?
Sure we could.
That they intend to use.
I mean, my
And
worst
do what with it?
fear would be to take it over and then, you know.
18 people have the same plot.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it made better sense to speak with some of the funeral directors to find out exactly, you know, what history they have as far as how do they, if there's going to be an interment, who do they deal with, or how does that operate if there is availability of sites, and is it the presentation of the plot that just then gets you access, or who's in charge? But again, we haven't gotten in that far.
Could this be a test case for community champions? To see if they
There's a registration.
It's going now.
And getting back to what Travis said, as far as, I mean, there's a little more involved with, you know, just the mowing, because, I mean, there's a lot of headstones that are sunk down, and, I mean, there's a lot of maintenance that, you know, there's people that put a lot of money into some of those grave sites and so forth, and it's a crime. I know I've been out there a couple times weed eating and so forth when community days, and, you know, painting the fences out front. And
What's the taxation status of a cemetery?
Tax exempt.
Exempt.
It's assessed at more than $700,000, but it's tax exempt.
Well, so you're looking for us to permission to move forward, or?
Correct.
Okay, so what kind of action do we need?
I think it's just allow staff to explore options with the idea that hopefully some kind of nonprofit board can be formed, and even if it takes a petition in the court, and again, we're getting ahead of ourselves, But if we can get the court to direct the ownership or maintenance to the new entity, not the borough, I think that's probably our best case scenario if we're not able to locate anyone that wants to exercise ownership based on the corporate entity. So, I mean, that's the direction I think we're heading if we can pull that off.
Yeah, and whoever the entity is, if you want to direct them to the Historical Society to do some research, since obviously they have some, records that may be valuable.
Let's do it.
Okay, it's a shame it's happening, but, we need to do something. Okay, 13, Fairmont Waterworks camping event, July 15th, 2015.
Fairmount Waterworks is an organization that does impacts. It's a week-long service project for high school students. I think it's 15 high school students from communities within the Schuylkill River watershed. And they would like permission to, similar to the kayaking or the Schuylkill River Sojourn on July the 15th, they would like permission to camp at Riverfront Park as part of their program as they move down the river.
Any questions? Okay, it'll be listed. 14, Elks Lodge Brewfest for October 4th.
The Pottstown Elks Lodge, located on High Street, is in the process of planning their first annual Brewfest benefit building for their Elks Building Fund. On Sunday, October the 4th, from 12 to 5 o'clock, they would like permission to close High Street between High and York Streets for the purpose of conducting the Brewfest. Hanover and York, thank you. That would be an interesting spot. And Mr. Hennessy, I believe, is here.
You didn't want to have it in front of your building?
Well, we understood that that was more of a residential block, more so than between Hanover and York Street, which is more commercial. And one of our goals is to highlight local businesses.
Okay. So it's just a question. Any questions? Okay, we'll have it listed for Monday. Number 15, YWCA Take Back the Night event, April 30th.
Thursday, April 30th, the YWCA is hosting their first Take Back the Night event. It's a event to raise awareness regarding sexual assaults, and they would like to conduct the event in Memorial Park from dark, around 7:30 p.m. until about 9 o'clock. They're going to have counselors there, coordinators there. They're going to have some speakers there, and they anticipate an attendance upwards to 75 to 100 people. It will be after dark, therefore they need to be granted permission to be in the park after dark.
Any questions?
Any other costs incurred?
No, there are no. They're not asking for any fee waivers.
Just requesting a police presence.
There will be a police presence. I anticipate that.
That's right.
Okay, bid awards for sanitary sewer cleaning.
Douglas.
We received 7 bids. Low bid was Pipe Service Corporation from Westchester. They were the bidders, low bidders in the awarded contract last year, and we were pleased with their work. So,
How much area are they going to be doing?
this will take essentially everything from Kime Street east to the Borough line, and from the north to the south. So this will complete the whole east end of the system. Then we'll be good from the Manatoni all the way to the east, and then we just have the west side to complete yet.
When they do the cleaning, do they identify any collapses or anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I got plenty of those.
I can imagine. All right, that'll be listed for Monday evening. Harb, we have 57 North Franklin Street. Any questions on that? And we have the 2 that were done administratively for approval, 58 King Street and 426 I Street. Any questions? questions on these? Okay, that'll be listed. We have one add-on. Erica is going to do a little talk on CARES on Friday.
Well, Friday, the April 10th, we'll be doing our spring, smaller scale cleanup with the Hill School, Borough, the college, and the Pottstown School District. And we'll be doing Borough Parks, we'll be getting downtown, we'll be doing the Ricketts Center. You'll see us, we'll be out bundled up if we have to for the rain, but we'll be out. And if you are interested in participating, meet us at the Hill School hockey rink. We'll be staging equipment. 8:30 to 8:45, we get everybody together. By 8:45 to 9, we will be walking or being transported to different areas to take part in the cleanup day. And then for another piece of that, we've been working with the different art classes with the school district and the college and the Hill on a mural, and that will be presented next month. We'll be bringing the concept before you for that, but that will be next to the community garden on Chestnut Street, 427 Chestnut Street. But I will provide details then. We had a press release out regarding that this past week on the information on that, so we're taking it a step further and doing some specific projects. Things are evolving, we're going to get out there, and there's a lot of different cleanups going on. I also just want to put a plug in for the Schuylkill River Trail. They'll be taking part in several cleanups as part of Sly Fox Spree event. Sly Fox has a new ale out, Schuylkill River Trail Ale, and we'll be doing the spree starting April 16th and kicking that off, doing many events from Schuylkill Haven all the way to Philly. And they'll be celebrating this new ale, and proceeds from that goes to the Schuylkill River Heritage Area. So that's a neat thing, and so they'll be taking part in that through to Earth Day, and several cleanup events will be happening. So if you want to get involved, definitely through CARES or through many of the other events taking place within the borough and beyond. So thank you.
Okay, comments from citizens present.
Bruce Madera.
Good evening to everyone. On my comments tonight, I have nothing to do with any fire company, but I'm very concerned as a taxpayer how the merger of companies will save tax money and make for more efficiency. Now, I do publicly compliment Steve Tironi, who is very good to call people back and talk, and we did talk on this matter. I asked him how the merger was money-saving, and his answer I took to be a serious and honest one, as my question was. But on thinking of his answer or answers, I got kind of bothered. And, well, this is what I remember hearing, that I heard, something about the Phillies social room. The roof over it and the heat for it cost the borough money. And now the last time I drove by that building, the roof and heat have to do with the downstairs where the fire trucks are, as well as upstairs. Same thing in my house. Hard to heat the downstairs without the upstairs. And I think I heard this too, that without the Phillies actually being mentioned, there was a suggestion or concern about drunken firemen coming out to fires, which could cost the borough serious money. And there was a question about how well trained some firemen are in this town. Now, I'm not too flaky at age 70 now, but I'm kind of bothered in that all I heard, nothing was so outstanding as to cost saving or pro-efficiency was said, but rather it just sounded kind of less important, maybe even like a personal grudge. And the Phillies, I wasn't here but reviewed on TV the meeting last month, Council of the Whole, and it seemed like the Phillies that's it, they're done, because they haven't come along so far. Now, I did an inquiry on my own, which I think any citizen has the right to do, and I inquired of the Phillies and of the other fire companies. And the Phillies responded kindly and very soon. I have their response right here, which I have 2 to 3 weeks. Roof repairs, they say, are done by their own funds, and here, once again, in writing, is a rating of all their firemen, which looks impressive. And by the way, I don't see any alcoholic mentioned among them, but it doesn't classify people as alcoholics. Now, here is a response from the other companies. I made an inquiry over 2 weeks ago. I haven't even had a phone call back. Now, there are some people on this board up here, when I raise general, important for the whole town, very serious questions, and I do it in old-fashioned technology by type letter or a phone call, I don't get any answer back at all. And I have to say it right out, this includes the borough manager, although he's a very busy man, but I don't think there's 21,000 residents out of 22,000 calling him and asking questions. I don't get answers back. I simply asked everybody, all the 4 companies really, the same serious questions. Who pays for your repairs? And do you really check firemen? In fact, I got another answer to this from somebody at the Phillies, involved with the Phillies, on Monday when I talked to him, that somebody that's hanging up at the bar, they're not allowed to go out, jump on a truck, come down and jump in the truck after they have, a couple of beers. So that's an answer that I'm looking for. And by the way, there are bars down the street from the other fire companies, if not in the fire companies themselves. So we citizens overtaxed now, we need more serious cause and consequences for a fire company merger than what sounds like a personal grudge. I mean, please, council, reconsider this, and I ask you, please do not approve of this merger. Thank you very much.
Tori Dugan.
My name is Tori Dugan, and for my senior project at Pottstown High School, I decided to combine 2 of the things that I love, cross-country running and my community. For my senior project, I would like your support because I'm running it at Riverfront Park. It's a 5K challenge run, and all the proceeds will go to the Safe Streets promotive from Padita. And I would really like everyone's support there. It's May 17th, and the race will begin at noon. Registration is at 10. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the extent of the public comment.
Okay, Councilor's inquiry. Councilor Kirkland.
Just, as the weather starts to change, finally, and it gets nice out, I just ask the folks to, be careful with what you're doing. I know we have some areas in the borough where people don't always pay attention to the speed limit, and as the weather gets nice, our kids are going to be out running around and playing. We're going to have other pedestrians out. So just, use your head. And also, as the weather gets nice, as we head into spring and summer, too often we hear from folks about all the bad things that go on in the borough and all the things that are wrong with Pottstown. And, I sit here every month and listen to, like Carol went through the litany tonight of all the events that are coming up, community events that are going to be throughout the course of the spring and summer. And, Cheryl mentions all the pet activities that go on. And I would encourage as many of our residents as possible to be involved in those types of activities. On a Saturday, if you want a break and something to do, just walk downtown. Even if you don't have anything in particular in mind, just walk downtown. Give the impression that we are a vibrant family community, and that will go a long way. And if there's a lot of good law-abiding people out, there's going to be fewer people out looking to cause problems. So, as the weather gets nice, I just encourage our folks to get out there and enjoy Pottstown.
Councilor Whedon?
I can't top that.
Actually, I'm trying to help Chief Drumheller and the police department build on a registry of people in the borough that are properties that have surveillance systems, cameras. And so there's an example, there's an incident maybe on the 300 block of Walnut Street. Like Mr. Johnson has a camera there. And I just take opportunity to maybe reach out to people in PCTV land if they would like to help out and notify the police department that they do have a surveillance system. That'd be a fantastic help. That's it.
Okay. Councilor Cole.
I hope everyone will look on our website at all our bicentennial events starting in May, and it's plenty to do. There's no reason for anyone to sit and say they're bored with nothing you do when there's plenty to be done in Pottstown.
And a segue on Counselor Geary's recommendation, just a reminder that Saturday, May 16th, 9 to 3 is our Pet Rescue Day. We have 12 reservations already and more coming in, so we're really excited about this event, and please come down and stop by. Oh, I'm sorry, Smith Family Plaza.
That's this Saturday?
Saturday, May 16th.
Mayor?
I'd just like to say it was very exciting yesterday to be at the groundbreaking, wall breaking at the Pottstown Senior Center. And just to recap their $1 million that they had on hand, and then the Dana Corporation came in with an additional $9,000, and the Elks on High Street with an additional $1,000 on top of that. So there was a lot of youthful energy there in that crowd, and a lot of members of the senior center were present. And Mr. Tironi gave the words, and it was very historic in that he was a part of actually constructing the building many years ago. So
That was in my youth. Probably 78. Around then.
Wow. So in September or thereabouts, they'll be having a ribbon cutting for another grand opening. So that'll be exciting as well. And this is rather early, but this is a save the date fundraiser for Meals on Wheels. They had a raising awareness weeks in March, and I was able to participate. And just a reminder that if you know people in the community that are eligible and elderly, let's look out for them, because this is a perfect and well-oiled machine that delivers meals, 2 meals daily to people that are homebound, and provides them with balanced nutrition and also specific menus for people on dialysis and so forth and so on. So, thank you.
Okay. Chief, do you want to talk about this initiative, I guess, that you're starting or working on, continuing to work on?
Yeah, we recently got new business cards printed up. They have the phone number on them for the drug hotline. They also have 2 email addresses. One's drug tip, and the other one says Pottstown Police. We're asking you to be more, so we can be more interactive with the group. If you send an email to the drug tip, that way we can talk back and forth to you so that we get more information. Sometimes people think they're helping us out. They give us a little bit of information, and it's not quite what we're hoping for, and then we can't have any contact because they try to stay anonymous. This one, it'll still be anonymous, but at least we can email back and say, this is what we want to do. So we're circulating these cards. I gave council all a small pile of them. If you need more, just let me know.
Okay, yeah, the mayor did take a little bit of what I was going to talk about, which is the senior center and so forth, and it was really neat to see the senior residents and so forth enjoying what they know is going to be a beautiful building. So it's Kaiser Construction's doing the work, and they did the work on the Steel River Playhouse. I mean, they're a top-notch quality construction company, so they're in good hands as far as the work that's going to be done there. So, yeah, it was quite historic. Started my construction career right out of college, and ending my political career in the same building. So, be able to spend some more time enjoying the senior center and so forth, and it's going to be a great place. And it's amazing how many. We're fortunate to have it here in Pottstown, and it is going to be over 18,000 square feet. And for some seniors that go there, it's a way for them to communicate and be with people instead of just sitting staring at a wall. And it does keep them youthful and productive. And with this going to be a state-of-the-art facility, we're quite fortunate that the amount of people that have donated money, and as she said, it was the Dana Corporation gave a big check, and also the Elks turned in and gave a big check. So, second, I guess, of many checks they've given. So, we're fortunate to have a giving community towards this center, so I thank you. Anything else? That's it. We are adjourned.